We're going to talk about today an explanation of where we're going to make contact with the ball, particularly when we're hitting the opposite field, but in general, maybe just where we want to make contact anytime when we're hitting. I had the nice fortune of being able to talk with Tony Oliva, and he was a former great hitter for the Twins. I got to talk to him years ago, and he was a great hitter from Cuba. And I asked him, I said, Mr. Oliva, I said, where do you try to make contact with the ball when you're up to bat? And I think this is one of the things that you find with major league hitters. A lot of times their plans are very simple. They don't get all involved in a lot of mechanics thinking and all of that at the plate. They have very simple approaches at the plate. When he was demonstrating to me, he said, you know, he said, what I try to do is I try to hit the ball out front. Let's see where Lucas gets here. So out front is going to be, in Tony's terms, right about where the front foot finishes when the stride finishes. So it would be hitting the ball perpendicular, the barrel of the bat perpendicular to the flight of the ball, and then taking the bat on out through, as we demonstrated in that one video of using the rope. But he said, and I said, well, okay, what about with the curveball? Where do you try to hit that pitch? He said, man, I try to hit it out front and up the middle. He said, I do everything that way. Now, I don't try to pull the ball. And that caused me to think about some things that, one thing in particular that maybe even I taught when I was younger as a coach, about letting the ball get deep. When I was with the Dodgers as a hitting instructor there, we had a young phenom who was a great high draft. His name was Reggie Abercrombie. He later made the majors for just a little while. But Reggie was a very powerful but not a very disciplined hitter. And in spring training, he had some guys tell him, well, Reggie, you need to let the ball get deep. So with Lucas standing here, what Reggie thought letting the ball get deep was letting it get right back off this back hip. Now, I don't have to tell you that Reggie was a mess after that. He couldn't get the bat through anything. He was fouling balls off, hitting balls over here, and he was getting more and more frustrated. So I happened to talk with one of the administrators there, one of the big guys, and I said, you know, you need to come out and look at Reggie hit, because we've got some guys telling him he needs to let the ball get deep, and this is what he thinks. So Terry came out and he looked at him and he said, Reggie, what are you thinking? You can't hit the ball when it gets back here. You've got to think just like Tony Oliva. You've got to think out front and up the middle if you're going to drive the ball. When Reggie started to do that, plus think hit the ball opposite alley, he started to really drive the ball once again. But instead of letting the ball come real deep on him where he was all tied up, couldn't use his hips, got the ball deep, no production at all with his hitting, then he started to come around and hit well again. Another instance that happened on TV that I happened to be watching, Randy Wolf was a pitcher who played for me at Pepperdine, one of my real fine starters there. He's been in the major leagues now for several years. He was pitching against the Cardinals, doing pretty well. I think he had something like a 5-2 lead or something like that. And Pujols came up with 2 outs. He had a guy on base, and knowing Randy, he's one of those red-headed guys, you know, he's really competitive and has a hot temper, and he's going to get Pujols again. He'd already got him twice. So he says, oh, I can just see him on the mound. I'm going to get him again. Well, he gets 2 strikes on him. And then he throws a fastball out on the outside part of the plate. Not a bad pitch, really. And Pujols, being Pujols, drives it out of the field, out of the park, to right field. But the interesting thing was Joe Morgan was doing the color commentary that day, and he said, I want all the young hitters to watch this, because they slowed it down, put him on slow motion, and he said, watch where Pujols makes contact with this ball. When he made contact, take your stride and stop there, Lucas, come on to contact. He hit the ball right there. And then he took the bat right over here. And he said, everybody, this is Joe Morgan talking, tells these young hitters, let the ball get deep. And he said, you let the ball get back here, once again, Joe Morgan talking, you can't even keep the ball between the chalk lines. So he said, I want all you young hitters to realize that ball will get back a little ways, but what we're talking about when we say let it get deep is not let it get back here. Letting it travel or letting it get deep, if it's understood correctly, is letting it get to your hit spot, to your contact point. And we'll talk later about how you do the swing on different locations of the pitch, which again is one of the things that Dixie Walker taught me when I was first in pro ball. And he had some great ways to talk about hitting the opposite field as well as with the inside pitch. But that first conversation with Tony Oliva was one that convinced me that, you know, what I hear people saying to me when I was young or saying now to young hitters about letting the ball get deep, that's not what major league hitters do. And I tell my players all the time, I say, look, don't believe me. You take the time to go study hitters, get a DVD, something you can slow the hitter down with, go and watch it and see what they're doing. A lot of times you hear guys that have gone to some book or some clinic and they think, well, this is what he says, and they misunderstand him. But you go and watch hitters and then you compare it to what you're being told. I have my guys do that. Don't believe me. Go and watch and study it yourself. If you study, you become a better hitter. We're going to be talking about next time hitting to opposite field with two different methods. We're going to talk about the sidearm method as well as the push swing.